If we put that migration onto a human scale, it'd be the equivalent of you running a 10K twice a day, once for your supper and once before you went to bed. This vertical migration of animals serves as a vector where that carbon gets consumed, moved deep in the ocean, through the food web, and then of course excreted, where it makes a really rapid descent to the seafloor after it's gone through this sort of biological elevator and amplifies that sequestration process. It's really interesting because these twilight zone animals have largely been out of human sight and interest, but there have been fisheries begun in several countries and being proposed in others to provide fish oil and fish meal for farmed fish and for human supplements. And so we really are in a bit of a race to understand the biology of these animals before they're exploited. Many animals in the ocean undergo vertical migrations where they move to the surface to forage at night where there's a lot of plant life, and then they migrate down into the deep ocean where there's limited light to hide from their predators. So it's this real balance between finding enough food while avoiding becoming dinner. Another important process that these migrations have a role in is carbon export. They serve as a biological conveyor belt that moves energy from the surface to the deep sea, which is an important part of how carbon is sequestered in the deep sea and removed from the atmosphere. We're just beginning to understand what role this vertical migration plays, but it may account for most of the vertical transport of carbon in the ocean. Which is a surprisingly short amount of time that we've, been looking at this ecosystem and discovering new species nearly every outing. And so it's just, sort of a Pandora's box of things we have yet to learn and consequences. That these animals are critically important in the food web. They play a keystone role as a food resource. And so that's something we really need to be cognizant of, that when we fish these animals, we are having an impact on those other animals that we also fish.